Sofia Rossi sat alone at a linen-draped table near the back of the reception hall, cradling a delicate china cup of tea in her hands. The lavish wedding of her college friend Bianca Vitale was in full swing around her. Laughter and music floated beneath crystal chandeliers as elegantly dressed guests mingled with glasses of Prosecco. Sofia felt out of place amid the opulence. A simple navy dress in a sea of designer gowns, an ordinary woman among Italian high society. She had gladly flown to Tuscany to support Bianca's big day, unaware her friend was marrying into a very different kind of family. Needing a quiet moment away from the crowd, Sofia retreated to a corner table by a marble pillar. She sipped her chamomile tea, steadying herself with its warmth. That's when she noticed him. 2 tables over sat a man alone with his own cup of tea. Tall and lean in a midnight black suit, he was strikingly handsome in a chiseled, remote way. Even from afar, he exuded an aura of quiet authority. Unlike the laughing guests, this man's expression remained distant, his eyes watchful, as if he stood guard even here. Sofia wondered who he was, perhaps a relative of the groom, or one of Bianca's elusive brothers she'd never met. As Sofia mused, an elegant figure slipped into the chair beside her without warning. She started, nearly sloshing her tea. Bianca's mother, Signora Giuliana Vitale, sat poised in a champagne lace gown, dark hair impeccably coiffed with silver at the temples. The older woman's face held a gracious smile, but her hazel eyes were edged with worry. Before Sofia could speak, Giuliana leaned in close, bringing a subtle waft of expensive perfume and an urgent whisper. "Pretend you're my son's fiancée." Sofia blinked, unsure she'd heard right. "I beg your pardon?" Giuliana's manicured fingers lightly grasped Sofia's wrist under the table. "Please, cara mia," she hissed softly. "It's an emergency, just for tonight. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't vital." Sofia's heart kicked in her chest. Pretend to be her son's fiancé? Her gaze instinctively darted toward the man in the black suit. He had set his cup down and was scanning the crowd with a faint scowl. He must be Giuliana's son, Bianca's older brother, Luca Vitale. Bianca had mentioned Luca was intensely private and hadn't settled down despite the family's hopes. Sofia certainly hadn't heard he was engaged. She looked back at Giuliana in bewilderment. The matriarch's face was tense with near panic, though she maintained a calm facade. Whatever this was, it wasn't a prank. A million questions tangled in Sofia's mind, but a murmur from nearby drew Giuliana's attention over Sofia's shoulder. "That man approaching, Don Marcello Greco," Giuliana whispered, a hint of fear in her voice. "He must believe Luca is engaged. There's no time to explain more. Will you help us, Sofia? Please." Sofia followed the older woman's gaze. An imposing gentleman in an ivory-white suit was crossing the hall, flanked by a younger man. Other guests greeted him with polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Something about his arrival quieted the laughter nearby. Even without knowing his identity, Sofia felt a prickle of warning at the predatory grace in his movement. Her mouth went dry. She barely knew the Vitale family beyond Bianca, but Giuliana's desperation was palpable. And if a man like Don Greco expected Luca to have a fiancée, what would he do if he learned it was a lie? Sofia's instincts screamed to say no and slip away from whatever this was. But Giuliana's plea and the urgency in her eyes made up her mind. Sofia gave a tiny nod, heart pounding. "All right," she whispered. "I'll do it." Relief flooded Giuliana's eyes. In an instant, the older woman stood and drew Sofia up with her, looping a supportive arm through hers in a gesture of warm familiarity. Sofia tried to quell her trembling as Don Greco arrived before them like a shark gliding into shallow waters. "Giuliana, buonasera," Don Greco greeted smoothly in Italian, bending to brush polite kisses near Giuliana's cheeks. He was tall and silver-haired, with a courteous smile that failed to warm the cold appraisal in his dark eyes. His gaze shifted to Sofia, raking over her in thinly veiled curiosity. "And who is this lovely young lady? I don't recall seeing her at other family gatherings." Giuliana beamed, not missing a beat. "This is Sofia Rossi," she said, patting Sophia's arm. My son Luca's fiancée. Sophia hoped her smile looked natural as Don Greco's eyes bore into her. A flicker of surprise crossed his features, quickly masked by that thin smile. Fiancé, Luca is engaged? How delightful and unexpected. It's a recent development, Juliana replied lightly. With our Bianca's wedding, we haven't had time to formally announce it yet. I see. Don Greco's smile remained, but his gaze sharpened. The Vitale family is full of surprises tonight. Just then, a firm hand clasped Don Greco's shoulder from behind. Don Marcello, good to see you, came a calm male voice. I see you've met Sophia. Sophia turned her head and found Luca Vitale suddenly at her side. He must have approached in silence. Up close, Luca was even more imposing, broad-shouldered and impeccably groomed, his slate-gray eyes assessing the scene with cool control. A polite half-smile touched his lips, though Sophia sensed tension coiled beneath. Don Greco chuckled. Luca, auguri, congratulations. You've kept this engagement very quiet. Luca slid his arm around Sophia's waist, pulling her subtly against his side. The contact was startling and intimate. Sophia's breath hitched, but she realized he was doing it to look the part. His hand rested possessively at her hip. Thank you, Don Greco, Luca said evenly. We didn't want to distract from Bianca's celebration. Announcing our engagement can wait until after tonight. How considerate, Don Greco replied, an edge beneath his genial tone. His eyes flicked to Luca's arm around Sophia, then back to Luca's face. I admit, I'm relieved you found a match on your own, since our previous discussion about alliances didn't interest you. Sophia felt Luca's grip on her tighten ever so slightly. I prefer to choose my own fiancé, he said, a note of steel in his courteous voice. I'm sure you understand. Of course. Greco's tone was amicable, but a vein in his temple ticked. After a beat, he inclined his head. Well, I must give my regards to your father. Enjoy your evening, Luca. And a pleasure to meet you, Signorina Rossi. He nodded to Sophia, even daring to lift her free hand and brush it with a cool, old-world kiss. The pleasure is mine, Sophia managed softly. Don Greco moved on, white suit vanishing into the crowd. The instant he was out of earshot, Luca released Sophia's waist as if it burned him. Juliana exhaled a shaky breath. I'm sorry it had to be so sudden, Juliana said, voice low. Marcello cornered me earlier. I'd asking if you'd reconsider Mama, what have you done? Luca cut in, tone hushed and urgent. Sophia flinched at the controlled anger in his voice. Luca's storm-gray eyes fixed on his mother, then flicked toward Sophia. Who exactly are you? He demanded under his breath. And why would you agree to this charade? Sophia straightened, bristling at his tone despite her racing pulse. I'm Bianca's friend, she whispered back. Your mother asked for my help. I was trying to do the right thing for her, and for you. Juliana placed a placating hand on Luca's arm. Don't blame her, Luca. I roped Sophia into this at the last minute. Marcello was pressing me about that marriage alliance, and I panicked. I lied that you were already engaged. He insisted on meeting her tonight, so... She gave Sophia an apologetic glance. Luca muttered a curse under his breath. He turned slightly, angling himself to shield both women from curious onlookers. Around them, the reception carried on obliviously, guests laughing, music playing, yet an invisible dagger hung over their heads now. This is dangerous, Luca said, voice taut. If Marcello Greco even suspects this engagement is fake, it could get us both killed, understand? Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. She had known it was risky, but hearing Luca say killed drove the point home. She swallowed hard and nodded. Understood. Good. His eyes bored into hers, fierce and unyielding. Stay by my side for the rest of the night. Do exactly as I say, and we might get through this alive. Sophia managed a faint, all right. Fear warred with a spark of resolve inside her. She hadn't missed the way Luca positioned himself protectively in front of her when Greco was near. As intimidating as he was, he hadn't thrown her to the wolves. He'd played along. Luca offered his arm to her, a cordial smile already back on his face as a few relatives glanced their way. "Smile," he murmured tersely. Sophia forced a smile to her lips and placed her trembling hand on Luca's arm. He guided her out of their quiet corner, toward the glowing heart of the reception, as if they were any other enamored couple. Less than an hour ago, she'd been a nobody sipping tea alone. Now she was on the arm of a Mafia heir, pretending to be in love under the watchful eyes of dangerous men. "If you want to get out of here alive, you'll do exactly as I say," Luca's warning echoed cold and absolute in her mind as they stepped into the crowd. No matter how terrified she was, there was no turning back now. A waltz drifted from the string quartet as Luca led Sophia onto the marble dance floor beneath the chandeliers. All around, couples swayed in the golden light. Sophia's nerves jangled, but she forced herself to mirror Luca's composed demeanor. He rested a light hand against her upper back and clasped her other hand in his. To onlookers, they might have looked like a picture-perfect engaged couple enjoying a romantic dance. They moved in silence for a few moments. Sophia's mind churned with questions, but she hardly knew where to begin. Finally, she drew a steadying breath and ventured, "That man, Don Greco, he's not just a family friend, is he? The way you and your mother reacted, what exactly is he?" Luca guided her through a turn, maintaining the genteel smile on his face, even as his eyes remained coldly alert. "He's dangerous, that's all you need to know." Sophia bit her lip. "Dangerous, like?" "Mafia dangerous," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the lilting violins. Luca's jaw tightened. He didn't answer directly, but the tension in his frame was answer enough. Sophia's stomach flipped. The hazy suspicions she'd harbored crystallized. Bianca's family wasn't just wealthy or old-fashioned. They were part of that world. And now she was pretending to be engaged into it. She fought a swell of panic. This is a Mafia family, isn't it?" she breathed. Luca's silence was telling. He finally gave the slightest nod, eyes scanning the room over her shoulder. "Keep your voice down, and keep smiling." Sophia obeyed, pasting a faint smile even as her heart hammered. For a moment, she was dizzy with the unreality of it. Her dear friend Bianca had grown up steeped in organized crime. How had Sophia missed the signs? Or perhaps she hadn't wanted to see them. A gloved hand tapped Luca's shoulder lightly. "May I cut in?" chimed Bianca's bright voice. The bride stood beaming, her cheeks flushed with happiness and champagne. The music ebbed. Luca released Sophia, but kept a protective arm around her waist as they turned to Bianca and her new husband. "Bianca," he greeted warmly, leaning to kiss his sister's cheek. "Congratulations again, Sorellina." "Grazie, but don't change the subject." Bianca wagged a finger before turning an incredulous grin on Sophia. "You and my brother? Engaged? When did this happen? Why didn't you tell me? Oh mio Dio. I nearly fainted when Mama announced it." Sophia's face burned under her friend's delighted scrutiny. Lying to dangerous strangers was one thing. Lying to Bianca's face was far harder. "Bianca, I'm sorry," she stammered, frantically trying to conjure an explanation. "It all happened so fast," Luca smoothly intervened, drawing Bianca into a quick side hug. "It's my fault. It was sudden, and I wanted it to be a surprise," he said with a sheepish chuckle. "We didn't want to overshadow your day with our news." Bianca's eyes welled with happy tears. "Steal my thunder? Are you crazy? Luca, I'm thrilled for you," she squealed and flung her arms around Sophia next, pulling her into a tight hug. "Sophia, you'll be my sister for real now. This is the best surprise ever." Guilt twisted in Sophia's gut as she hugged Bianca back. I wanted to tell you, but we were trying to keep it quiet," she said lamely. Bianca pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I understand. Oh, Papa is going to be so pleased you finally found someone. Luca, and such a wonderful someone." She squeezed Sophia's hands, then Luca's. "We need to catch up soon, but they're calling me for photos. Promise we'll celebrate later, okay?" "Absolutely." Luca smiled, giving his sister's hand a fond squeeze. "We'll have lots to talk about." Bianca gave a final beaming glance between them and hurried off with her husband in tow. As she departed, Sophia's forced smile faded. Her chest ached with guilt. She turned to Luca. eyes damp. She's my best friend, and I just lied straight to her face. Luca's expression softened, losing its hard edges for a moment. You did what was necessary to keep her wedding day peaceful, he murmured. We'll explain it to her later, if we can. The unresolved if hung in the air. Sophia felt a chill despite the warmth of the packed hall. If they survived tonight, if all went well, then they could explain. She understood. She forced herself to nod. Luca guided her off the dance floor toward a quieter corner by a row of columns. He leaned close, keeping his voice low. I need to check on something with my men. Stay here by the table. Don't wander off, all right? His commanding tone rankled a bit, but Sophia knew it came from genuine concern. I'll be right here, she assured. Luca gave her a long look, as if to reaffirm she was safe, and then stepped away to speak to a burly man in a dark suit near the edge of the room. They conversed gravely. Sophia saw Luca's gaze sweep over the crowd, then toward the exits, his body language taut. She let out a shaky breath. The adrenaline of the Fiancée performance was wearing off, leaving her acutely aware of how exposed she felt. If Don Greco truly had ill intentions, would he make a move tonight? What exactly was this betrayal or alliance talk that had Juliana so spooked? Unable to bear simply standing idle, Sophia slipped out of the corner and headed toward the powder room to gather herself. It was only a short walk down a side hall. She'd be in view of Luca's position until the very door. Inside the marbled ladies' room, Sophia splashed cold water on her wrists and took a few steadying breaths. She needed to keep it together. Just a bit longer, and this surreal night would be over. She could only hope over didn't come with a bullet. As she stepped back into the dim side hallway, voices halted her in her tracks. Making the move during the toast. Are your men in position? A hushed male voice said in Italian, the slight local accent echoing off the stone walls. Si, but we need the signal from inside. Another man replied quietly. Antonio said he'd signal when Don Vitale is isolated. We get one shot at this. Sophia's blood ran cold. She pressed herself against the wall just around the corner from the voices. Don Vitale. That was Luca's father, the patriarch, and bride's father. They were plotting something during the toast. A move on Don Vitale. One shot at this. Her mind raced. This sounded horrifically like an assassination plan. Heart-pounding. Sophia risked a peek around the corner. Through the cracked door to a service alcove, she recognized one speaker by profile. Antonio Vitale, a cousin of Bianca's whom she'd seen at the family table. He was speaking in urgent whispers to a man in a caterer's uniform, half hidden in shadow. It has to be tonight, Antonio was saying grimly. Greco wants it done while all the key players are here. Once the lights go down for the toast and slideshow, we strike. Stick to the plan. Sophia clapped a hand over her mouth to contain a gasp. Betrayal from within. The traitor was Antonio, working with Greco to murder Don Vitale at his own daughter's wedding. And the signal would be when the lights dimmed for the wedding toast. She had to warn Luca. Now. As she turned to slip away, her heel nudged a brass vase perched on a pedestal. The vase scraped against the marble with a cringe-worthy squeal. Instantly, the low voices in the alcove silenced. Sophia's stomach lurched. She darted back down the hall, but it was too late. Antonio stepped out from the alcove, eyes narrowing. Sophia? He said, astonished to find her lurking. He briskly signaled the caterer to stay hidden. What are you doing back here? Sophia's mind raced. She must not let on what she heard. Summoning a flustered smile, she stammered, Oh, Antonio. I was just getting a bit of air. The hall was warm. Antonio's gaze flickered with suspicion. He took a step toward her. Behind him, the caterer lingered in the doorway, one hand inside his jacket, likely clutching a weapon. Sophia's pulse skyrocketed. Before Antonio could interrogate further, a calm voice sounded from the main corridor behind Sophia. There you are, Kara, Luca's voice, cool and casual, but edged with warning. In a few strides he was beside Sophia, slipping an arm around her shoulders. He looked at Antonio with friendly surprise, as if nothing were amiss. Thank you for keeping my fiancé company, Cugino. Antonio's eyes darted between them, then he forced a genial smile. Of course. Just bumped into her now. Luca gave a polite, tight smile. Well, We should be getting back. The toast is about to start. His grip on Sophia was steady as he drew her away. Antonio inclined his head, letting them pass. Yes, the toast. Don't keep Papa waiting, he said, voice smooth but with a glint of malice in his eyes. Sophia kept her own gaze down, heart thundering, until Luca guided her around the corner and out of Antonio's sight. Only then did Luca's hand tighten, urgency radiating off him. He led her directly into a small antechamber off the main hall, secluded by heavy drapes. His eyes blazed as he turned to her. "Are you all right?" he demanded in a harsh whisper. "Did they hurt you?" No, Sophia stuttered. "Luca, I heard them. Antonio and another man. They're planning something during the toast. They said when the lights go down, they'll strike at your father." Her words spilled out in a trembling rush. "Marcello Greco is behind it. Antonio's helping him. He's the traitor." Luca's face went pale, then cold with fury. "Dio mio," he breathed. "I suspected betrayal, but not here. Not tonight." He raked a hand through his hair, mind clearly racing. "It's happening soon," Sophia urged, clutching his sleeve. They were ready to move as soon as the toast starts. Luca snapped into action. "Listen carefully," he said, eyes locking on hers. "Go to my mother and stay with her. You were right about everything, but it's about to get ugly, and I don't want you in the crossfire. Understand?" Sophia opened her mouth to protest. She didn't want to leave him, but he shook his head sternly. "Please," he added, voice softer, "do as I say. I will keep your family safe. I won't let them hurt you either." The earnest fear in his eyes silenced her. She nodded. "All right." Relief flickered across his face. He squeezed her hand briefly. "Thank you." They stepped back into the main reception, rejoining the sea of oblivious guests. The band's song ended, and waitstaff circulated to dim some lights as the MC announced it was time for the father of the bride's toast and a slideshow of Bianca's childhood photos. At the head table, Don Vitale stood with a champagne flute, ready to address the crowd. Sophia saw Giuliana nearby and swiftly made her way to the matriarch's side, linking arms as if merely sharing in the moment. Giuliana gave her a puzzled look. "The lights," Sophia whispered urgently. "Something bad will happen when they go down. Stay close to Don Vitale." Giuliana's eyes widened slightly. Sophia could tell she understood immediately, but there was no time for more. Across the room, Luca circled toward his father, subtly positioning himself behind Don Vitale's right shoulder, as the slideshow screen flickered to life. His posture was tense but controlled, hand drifting near his jacket. Near a concealed firearm, Sophia realized. Don Vitale raised his glass. "Thank you all for sharing in this joyous—" His voice abruptly cut out as the lights went completely dark. For an instant, there was confused silence. A few guests murmured in surprise at the sudden blackness, but Sophia's eyes, already adjusted to the dim, caught swift movement by the dais. A dark figure climbing the few steps behind Don Vitale, a gun in hand. She didn't think. "Look out!" Sophia screamed, shattering the hush. Her warning came a second before a muffled foot sound hissed through the air, a silenced gunshot. In the strobing light of the first slideshow image now cast on the wall, Sophia saw Don Vitale recoil. A glass shattered, his champagne flute exploding in his grasp, rather than the bullet piercing his heart. Screams erupted as pandemonium swept the hall. Some guests dove under tables, others bolted for exits. In the darkness near the dais, Sophia could just make out Luca tackling a man in waiter's attire, Antonio's hired gun, before he could fire again. They crashed to the floor in a tablecloth snarling struggle. A chorus of gunfire suddenly erupted from the periphery of the room, guards engaging more hidden attackers. The hall lit with sporadic muzzle flashes. Giuliana grabbed Sophia, pulling her down behind an overturned table. Sophia's ears rang with screams and gunshots, her pulse thundering. On the dais, Luca wrestled the shooter ferociously. The silenced pistol skittered across the marble floor. Luca slammed the man's wrist against the ground once, twice, until the gunman cried out in pain. In seconds, 2 Vitale security men descended and pinned the would-be assassin. "Lights!" someone bellowed. Mercifully, after a brief hiccup, The chandeliers flared back to life. The scene revealed was chaos. Toppled chairs, cowering guests, armed guards with weapons drawn. Don Vitale stood shakily with Giuliana and Bianca clinging to him. Blood dripped from his palm where glass had cut it, but he seemed otherwise unharmed and furious. He bellowed to the panicked crowd. "Tutto ben. Everything is all right. Just a minor electrical accident. Please remain calm." It was an absurd explanation, but it calmed people enough to stem a stampede. Many guests were hustled quickly out by family handlers, ending the reception in an unceremonious evacuation. Those in the know exchanged grim, understanding looks. Sophia rose on trembling legs. Luca was already on his feet, barking orders to his men. The captured gunman was dragged from the hall. Not far off, another of Don Greco's accomplices lay unconscious, subdued by security. Luca's gaze found Sophia across the room. In 2 long strides he reached her. Without a word, he pulled her into an embrace. Sophia clutched his arms, her own body shaking now that the adrenaline waned. "You saved him," Luca murmured against her hair, a world of gratitude and worry in his voice. "You saved me," Sophia replied, voice hitching. He had taken on an armed man in the dark to protect them all, without hesitation. Luca pulled back just enough to scan her face, hands firm on her shoulders. "Are you hurt?" "No." Sophia managed a small, teary smile. "Luca, Antonio was— I know," he interjected grimly. His eyes flashed with pain and anger. "He's gone, slipped out in the chaos, but he won't get far. We'll find him." As if on cue, one of Luca's men hurried over. "Antonio isn't here, sir. He must have fled as soon as the lights came on." Luca's jaw clenched. "Lock down the grounds. Send teams to every family property, now." The man rushed off. Don Vitale, still in a fury, approached with Giuliana at his side. He placed a heavy hand on Luca's shoulder, then, to Sophia's surprise, on hers. "Signorina Rossi," Don Vitale said gravely, "you have my gratitude. You likely saved my life." His authoritative voice softened. "We owe you a debt." Sophia shook her head. I just reacted. I'm glad you're all right." Giuliana hugged Sophia tightly. "Brava, my dear. Such courage." Then that motherly fierceness returned in her eyes. "But I insist you stay with us tonight, somewhere safe. Greco and Antonio will answer for this betrayal, but until they're caught—" Luca nodded in agreement, already half distracted listening to incoming reports on a security radio. "Mama, take Sophia to the estate and keep her close. I'll coordinate the search." Sophia opened her mouth to object. She didn't want to be shut away while more danger unfolded, but Luca gently squeezed her hand, eyes pleading, "Please, do this for me. I need to know you're safe." Swallowing hard, Sophia acquiesced. "All right." He managed a faint, relieved smile and lifted her hand to his lips in a brief, impetuous kiss that made Giuliana's eyebrows rise slightly. "Thank you," he said softly. Then Luca turned, gathering a cadre of men with vengeful purpose in their eyes. Within minutes, he and Don Vitale and their loyal guards had swept out of the wrecked wedding hall into the night, and on the hunt for their betrayers. As Giuliana hurried Sophia toward a waiting car, Sophia's heart throbbed with worry. Luca was heading into even more danger, and she could do nothing now but pray he would be all right. "They're planning to kill my father tonight," Luca's grim words from earlier echoed in her mind. He had stopped that plot, but the night was far from over. Crystal glasses chimed gently as the last of the shaken wedding guests departed. The Vitale mansion was locked down tight. Sophia hovered in the grand foyer with Giuliana, both of them too restless to sit. The betrayal at the wedding had thrown the household into quiet turmoil. Luca and Don Vitale were out leading teams of their men to track down Marcello Greco and Antonio. Every tick of the ornate clock on the wall deepened the knot in Sophia's stomach. She replayed the scene in the hall over and over. The gun, the screams, Luca's silhouette in the flicker of gunfire. He was out there now, stalking a cornered mafia boss and a traitor cousin. She had never felt so frightened for anyone. Giuliana noticed Sophia wringing her hands and guided her to a plush chair. Sit, Kara, she urged gently. You'll collapse. Here, drink some water. Sophia obeyed. Sipping the water Juliana pressed into her hand. I'm sorry, Sophia murmured. I can't stop worrying. Juliana managed a small smile despite her own fear. It means your heart is in the right place. You care for my son. Anyone can see that. And he for you. Sophia opened her mouth to protest, but no denial came. She did care for Luca, far more than she had intended or realized, until faced with the prospect of losing him, before Sophia could respond. And the front door swung open. Luca stood on the threshold, flanked by 2 guards. Relief and exhaustion were etched on his face. Juliana rushed forward. Luca, thank God. Did you find them? Luca stepped in, nodding tersely. We caught Greco's remaining men trying to flee town. Antonio's location is confirmed. He's holed up at a safe house outside the city with a few of Greco's people. A dangerous light glinted in Luca's eyes. We're moving on it now. Juliana drew a sharp breath. So soon? Shouldn't we wait for your father and more backup? Every minute we wait gives Antonio a chance to disappear, Luca said, jaw set. We have enough men. Papa is meeting us there with others. His gaze shifted to Sophia, standing a few steps behind Juliana. Something in his tense posture eased just a bit when their eyes met. Sophia, he said, crossing to her. He took both her hands, his grip warm and steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. I need you to stay here. It's safest behind these gates, with guards. Promise me you won't try to leave. He was looking at her like he fully expected her to argue, and part of her wanted to. She wanted to insist on coming, to not be separated from him again in this deadly night. But she recalled her near panic waiting in that hall before, and knew Luca was right. She would be a liability on the front lines of a violent raid. I promise, Sophia said softly. Just please be careful. Luca exhaled, relief and gratitude in his eyes. He surprised her by lifting one of her hands to his lips, brushing a kiss across her knuckles. A tender gesture that made Juliana pretend to look elsewhere for a moment. I'll return as soon as I can, he vowed. Juliana quickly embraced her son. Dio ti protegga, figlio mio. God protect you, she whispered. With a last nod, Luca turned on his heel and strode back out into the night, his men close behind. The heavy door shut, leaving Sophia and Juliana cloaked in anxious silence once more. Juliana insisted Sophia lie down for a bit, but Sophia's nerves wouldn't allow it. After pacing her guest room for 15 minutes, she made a decision. She had to know what was happening. I promised not to leave, but I can't just sit here. Quietly, Sophia slipped out of her room and made her way to Don Vitale's study, where a radio set was tuned to the Vitale security frequency. Perhaps she could listen in. Inside the dark study, she found one of the younger guards manning the radio. He was dozing in an armchair, exhausted from the evening's ordeal. Sophia crept past him and gently lifted the receiver, careful not to make noise. Static crackled, then a voice. Arriving at target location. No sign of movement. It was Luca's voice, tinny but clear. Sophia's heart thundered. They were at Antonio's hideout. Another voice cut in. Don Vitale. Surround the house. No one escapes. We take that snake alive if possible. A few affirmations crackled back. Sophia clutched the receiver, knuckles white. Minutes passed in nerve-frazzling quiet. Then suddenly a burst of gunfire sounded faintly through the radio background. Shouts. Sophia stopped breathing, straining to hear. Greco's men on the second floor. Return fire, someone yelled. More gunshots. Sophia sank into the chair, mouth dry. Through the chaos, she recognized Luca's voice again. Antonio Vitale, he bellowed. It's over. Surrender now and we might spare you. There was no audible response, just a lull in the shooting. Sophia's pulse raced. Please, please just give up. Antonio. Then a different, rasping voice crackled through. The radio must have picked up someone speaking nearby Luca. You think I'm done, cousin? Antonio's tone dripped venom. This is only the beginning! A thunderous boom sounded over the radio. Sophia jumped. Some kind of explosion. The line hissed with static and shouts. After a harrowing gap, Luca's voice came. Tighter now. He's making a run for it! Cover the east side! Sophia realized with a jolt she couldn't do this. She couldn't just listen and pray. She had to be there. Breaking her promise to Luca was the last thing she wanted, but if something went wrong and she'd done nothing. Making up her mind, Sophia darted from the study. The guard barely stirred as she left. Down in the garage, she commandeered one of the sedans. The keys hung on a wall hook. None of the remaining staff stopped her as she slid behind the wheel. Her conscience screamed that this was foolish, yet her heart propelled her forward. Sophia drove through the gates. The lone guard posted there tried to flag her down, but she sped past, too fast for him to safely pursue. The roads were nearly empty at this late hour, as she navigated according to the rough directions she'd overheard. Within 20 minutes, she saw a glow of headlights and a plume of smoke ahead beyond a bend. She parked the car and continued on foot up a dirt lane, slipping through trees until a 2-story farmhouse came into view. The house's front doors were blown off their hinges. Muzzle flashes flickered from within. A fierce gunfight was still underway, though it sounded sporadic, like only a few holdouts remained. Sophia crept along a line of hedges. She spotted Luca's silhouette near a stone well in the courtyard, exchanging fire with a figure at an upstairs window. Her heart leapt at seeing him alive, in command, moving with that lethal grace. Boom! Another explosion blew out part of the ground floor wall, sending up a shower of sparks. Sophia shielded her head as debris rained down nearby. The firing abruptly ceased after that blast, giving way to shouting. "Antonio, stop!" That was Don Vitale's voice echoing from inside. "It's over! Drop it!" Silence. Then Sophia heard a scuffle of feet on gravel toward the back of the house. She raced along the hedge line to get a view of the rear. There, 2 figures running toward a car parked under a clump of trees. Even in dim moonlight, she recognized Antonio's lanky form dragging someone, Marcello Greco, limping heavily. They were escaping. If they got away now, everything would be for nothing. Worse, they'd come back with a vengeance. Sophia's blood surged. She wouldn't let it happen. Spying a fallen handgun on the ground, dropped by one of Greco's injured men earlier, she snatched it up. Hands shaking, she braced herself behind a low stone wall and leveled the gun at the car's tires. She squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out into the night. Her first bullet punctured the rear tire of the sedan with a loud pop. Antonio whirled toward the unexpected gunfire from behind. Sophia fired again and shattered the car's back window. Greco ducked with a curse, and Antonio recoiled from the spray of glass. In the same moment, Luca and 2 of his men rounded the corner of the house, alerted by the gunshots. "Stop them!" Luca shouted. Antonio realized he was caught between 2 fronts. With a snarl of rage, he shoved the wounded Greco toward the car's far side. "Get down, Don!" he barked, then emptied his pistol blindly toward Sophia's position and Luca's group in a desperate sweep. Sophia yelped and dropped flat behind the stone wall as bullets zipped overhead. One of Luca's guards cried out and went down, hit in the thigh. Before Antonio could fire again, a thunder of returning gunfire erupted from Luca's side. Antonio dove for cover behind the trunk of the car, but not fast enough. A shot caught him in the calf. He howled, collapsing to one knee. Luca sprinted forward through the darkness like a panther. Antonio, injured and cornered, raised his pistol at the oncoming threat, only to hear it click. Out of ammo. Luca reached him in a heartbeat, kicking the empty gun from Antonio's hand. He seized Antonio by the collar and slammed him against the bullet-riddled car. "Traditore," Luca snarled. "Your time is up." Antonio fought back with a wild swing, catching Luca across his bruised jaw. Luca grunted, then drove his fist hard into Antonio's gut. As Antonio doubled over, Luca wrenched him around and pinned him face down over the car's hood, locking his arm in a joint-cracking hold. Marcello Greco, seeing his last protector subdued, stumbled out from the other side of the vehicle with hands raised. Blood trickled down his temple from a graze. I surrender," he panted. By then, Don Vitale and more of his men had arrived from inside the house to secure the scene. 2 soldiers grabbed Greco roughly and forced him to his knees. Others swarmed around Luca and Antonio. "It's over, Cugino!" Luca hissed, leaning hard on Antonio to keep him pinned. Antonio let out a broken growl of pain and fury but couldn't break free. Sofia stood shakily, lowering the pistol she'd miraculously never dropped. Her knees nearly buckled with relief. They had done it. Antonio and Greco were captured. Within moments, zip ties secured Antonio's wrists, and a strip of duct tape silenced his curses. Luca finally stepped back, chest heaving. His eyes immediately searched the darkness until they found Sofia emerging from behind the wall. They widened in disbelief. "Sofia?" She managed a weak smile, inching forward. "I promised I'd stay at the villa. I'm sorry." A half laugh, half sob burst from Luca's throat. He closed the distance between them in a few strides and wrapped her in an embrace so tight her feet briefly left the ground. "You are the most stubborn, reckless woman I've ever met," he murmured, voice shaking with emotion. "And I am so grateful you're all right." Sofia pressed her face against his shoulder, clinging to him. The terror and adrenaline of the night crashed over her in a wave, bringing tears to her eyes. "I couldn't sit and wait," she whispered. "I had to help." Luca eased back just enough to frame her face between his hands. Dirt smudged her cheek. He wiped it gently with his thumb. "You did help. You stopped them from escaping." He looked at her as if she were some marvel he couldn't quite fathom. "Sofia, do you realize what you've done for my family tonight?" Sofia shook her head, tears spilling now. "All I cared about was not losing you," she admitted in a broken whisper. Something inside Luca seemed to break at that. With a low groan, he pulled her into a kiss, full of urgency, gratitude, and promises unsaid. Sofia melted against him, returning the kiss with everything pent up in her heart. In that moment, amidst the smoke and ruin, they were just two souls clinging fiercely to each other. A throat cleared discreetly nearby, and they broke apart, both blushing despite the darkness. Don Vitale looked on with a faint, knowing smile. "Luca, handle the rest of this tomorrow. We need to leave before the authorities arrive to ask questions." "Yes, Papa," Luca replied, slipping an arm securely around Sofia's waist. "It's done here." Within minutes, the Vitale men loaded their prisoners into vehicles. Antonio and Greco would face the harsh consequences of their betrayal soon enough. As Luca helped Sofia into the back of his SUV, she winced at the blood and bruises on his face and hands. "You're hurt," she fretted softly. Luca shook his head, brushing a lock of hair off her cheek. "It's nothing I won't heal from. Thanks to you, Amore. We're alive, all of us." He paused, eyes shining. "I can't ever repay you." Sofia took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "Maybe just stop trying to push me away," she teased gently. A quiet laugh escaped him. "Deal." They leaned into each other as the convoy of cars pulled away from the dark farmhouse, leaving the wreckage behind. Sofia knew there would be difficult days ahead. Questions to answer, secrets to keep, and likely new threats rising to fill the void Greco's downfall would create. But as Luca pressed a tender kiss to her forehead, she closed her eyes, feeling safe for the first time that night. They had walked through fire together and come out the other side. Whatever storm might come next, they would face it side by side. Neither of them noticed the dawn sun breaking over the horizon as they approached home. They had won this battle, but a far greater war still loomed in the shadows. A war they would have to face together. The Vitale estate bustled with subdued activity in the days following the wedding fiasco. Underworld whispers spread that Don Marcello Greco had gone missing, and the Vitale family closed ranks, preparing for the retaliation they knew would come. For now, a tense peace held. Greco's remaining allies were in disarray without their leader or his chief conspirator, Antonio. Sofia remained at the estate through it all, ensconced in Luca's world now by both necessity and choice. The morning after the confrontation, Luca had quietly asked her to continue the charade of their engagement a little longer, for appearance's sake, and to keep her under his protection. And Sofia had only smiled, and told him it wasn't a charade to her anymore. Luca's answering gaze, warm and relieved, told her he felt the same. On the surface, life at the villa settled into an uneasy normal. Bianca and Marco left for an extended honeymoon, blissfully unaware of how narrowly tragedy had been averted. Don Vitale publicly feigned ignorance of his brother's son Antonio's betrayal, spinning a tale that Antonio had gone abroad suddenly. Privately, the Don seethed and plotted strategy with Luca on how to deal with the inevitable fallout. It was a late afternoon when Sophia found Luca alone on the rear terrace, overlooking the estate's olive grove. He stood leaning on the balustrade, suit jacket off and shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows, revealing bandages on a few scrapes along his forearm. He was lost in thought, the autumn breeze ruffling his dark hair. Sophia approached softly. "Penny for your thoughts?" Luca turned, a smile touching his lips at the sight of her. "They're worth more than that," he teased gently, but his eyes were shadowed. Sophia stepped beside him at the railing. "Worried about Greco's people?" He nodded, gaze drifting to the distant tree line. "They're fractured now, but not gone. Eventually someone will try to take Greco's place, and they'll remember that a Vitale and you were the cause of his downfall." Sophia placed her hand over Luca's on the cool stone rail. "Let them come," she said quietly. "We'll handle whatever's next. Together." Luca tilted his head toward her, a flicker of surprise melting into tenderness. He turned his hand under hers, twining their fingers. "Do you have any idea how extraordinary you are?" he murmured. Sophia's cheeks warmed. "For believing in you? In us?" "For everything," Luca said, facing her fully. He cupped her cheek, brushing the pad of his thumb across her cheekbone. "You walked into hell with me without a second thought. You saved my family. You saved me." Sophia leaned into his touch. "You saved me first," she whispered. A ghost of a grin played on Luca's lips. "Looks like we'll have to keep saving each other then." He bent down and captured her lips in a slow, languid kiss. Sophia sighed into it, looping her arms around his neck. Here, in the gentle light of dusk, there was no urgency, no fear, just the sweetness of having found something neither expected. When they finally eased apart, Luca rested his forehead against hers. "I don't know what I did to deserve you," he said, voice rough with emotion. Sophia gave a soft, wry laugh. "By my count, you held a crime lord at gunpoint for me, tackled a would-be assassin for me, and let me ruin your shirt with my tears at least twice. I think we're more than even." Luca chuckled, the sound vibrating against her. "The fair points." They stood quietly for a moment, wrapped in each other, and the rustle of olive trees beyond. Sophia allowed herself to imagine that perhaps this perilous adventure could truly transform into something normal. Dinners together, helping Bianca plan her next party, maybe even rebuilding her own career here in Italy with Luca by her side. But normal wasn't quite within reach yet. The clack of shoes on tile announced Don Vitale's approach. Luca straightened, though he kept a protective arm around Sophia's waist as his father joined them. Don Vitale cleared his throat. "Figlio, Sophia." He inclined his head politely to her. He had taken to treating her with a certain fond respect, as if already a daughter-in-law in truth. "I have news. Our informants report that the remaining Greco captains are convening tomorrow night in Milan. They aim to choose a new boss." Luca's expression sharpened. "They'll formally declare vengeance on us then." "Most likely," Don Vitale said grimly. "It would be prudent for you." Don Vitale nodded approvingly. "Also, the engagement announcement." He gave them both a pointed look. "If this is to be more than a temporary story, better to make it official before rumors fill the void." Sophia's breath caught. "Official?" She glanced at Luca. Luca's face lit with a slow smile. He met Sophia's eyes. "I was going to discuss that with you tonight." Sophia's heart skipped. Her voice came out soft. "Discuss what exactly?" Luca took her hand, turning to face her fully. "Sophia Rossi, our engagement may have started as a ruse, but nothing about how I feel for you is pretend." He drew her hand to his chest. Beneath her palm, Sophia felt the strong, steady thud of his heartbeat. "I know it's fast, and I know my world is dangerous, but you've seen the worst of it and you're still here." His gray eyes shone with devotion. "Stay with me. For real." Marry me. Joy, disbelief, love. A whirlwind of feelings coursed through Sophia. Tears pricked her eyes, even as she let out a breathless laugh. Luca, you didn't really have to ask, did you? She smiled radiantly. Yes, of course, yes. A rare grin broke across Luca's face. He scooped her up and spun her once in elation. Drawing a surprised laugh from her, Don Vitale chuckled, murmuring something about young love as he tactfully withdrew to give them a moment. Luca set Sophia down gently. She wrapped her arms around his neck, forehead touching his. We might not get a quiet life, she whispered, but we'll have us. That's enough. It's more than enough, Luca agreed tenderly. He kissed her again, deeply, as the last light of sunset faded into night. Tomorrow, they would step out arm in arm, presenting a united front to friend and foe alike. There were battles yet to come, and secrets still to unravel. The stakes were higher than ever. Sophia understood that loving a man like Luca meant walking a knife's edge between danger and desire, but she was choosing that path with eyes open and heart steady. Whatever war still loomed on the horizon, one thing was certain. She and Luca would face it together, their bond forged in fire and stronger for it. And as his fiancée, soon his wife, Sophia would stop at nothing to protect him and the family that had become hers. Little did they know, the true test of their bond and their survival was only just beginning. Marcello Greco's empire didn't crumble overnight after his capture. In the weeks that followed, a quiet unease settled over the Vitale territory. Everyone knew the reprieve was temporary. Greco's remaining loyalists were regrouping in the shadows, hungry for revenge. The war they had anticipated was brewing just out of sight. Sophia grew accustomed to living under heightened security. Bodyguards accompanied her even on short trips into town. Luca was more protective than ever, though he respected her enough not to smother her. In truth, Sophia hardly minded the constant companionship. The looming threat of Greco's reprisal made any solitude unnerving. One crisp November evening, Sophia and Giuliana sat in the family's private box at La Scala Opera House in Milan. It was a rare public outing orchestrated by Don Vitale to demonstrate normalcy and confidence. Sophia's engagement ring, a vintage sapphire heirloom Luca had given her, sparkled under the chandeliers as she applauded politely between arias. To onlookers, the Vitals looked at ease, enjoying a cultural night out. Beneath her composed smile, Sophia's nerves hummed. Luca and his father, along with a small contingent of trusted men, had positioned themselves throughout the theater. If Greco's faction planned an attack or message, tonight was an ideal stage. So far the performance had gone uninterrupted. During intermission, Sophia excused herself to the powder room. Giuliana offered to accompany her, but Sophia insisted she'd be fine. The salon was just down the corridor, guarded at both ends by their people. Giuliana reluctantly agreed. In the elegant marble lounge, Sophia dabbed her palms with cool water and gave herself a pep talk in the mirror. Halfway through the evening, we can do this. As she stepped back into the corridor, she nearly collided with a man passing by. Pardon, Sophia murmured automatically, sidestepping. The man, a tall, lean figure in an expensive suit, paused, turning to look at her. Sophia's blood ran cold. It was Adriano Greco, Marcello's eldest son. His lips curved in a thin smile. Signorina Rossi, isn't it? Or should I say, Signorina Vitale soon? Sophia's heart slammed against her ribs. She forced a polite mask. Signor Greco, I didn't expect to see you here. Adriano's eyes, so like his father's, glinted. Nor I you. I suppose congratulations are in order on your engagement. He clapped slowly, mockingly. What a united front our families present. Meanwhile, my father rots who knows where. Sophia stood tall, remembering Luca's counsel to show no fear. Your father made his choices, she said evenly. If you'll excuse me, Adriano shifted, blocking her path. Oh, not just yet. I have a message, you see. Consider it the opening shot of the war to come. Sophia's pulse quickened. Over Adriano's shoulder, she saw one of the Vitale guards lie unconscious on the carpet, just around the bend of the corridor. Her mouth went dry. How had he... Adriano leaned in, dropping all pretense of civility. "We know it was you," he whispered, each word a razor. "You're the one who foiled my father. You and your fiancé humiliated us, and you will both bleed for it." Sophia's knees trembled, but she squared her shoulders. "Threats are cheap, Adriano." His jaw twitched. "Then let me make it explicit." In a flash, he grabbed Sophia's wrist. She gasped as he yanked her close, his other hand pressing something small and metallic into her palm, a folded, straight razor. Sophia's stomach lurched. It was an old Mafia token of vendetta, a promise that the bearer would be cut down. Adriano released her with a shove. "Compliments of the Greco family," he said softly. "We'll be seeing you soon, Cara." Footsteps echoed, approaching voices. Luca and another guard, coming to check on her. Adriano melted away down the side stairs, disappearing into the crowd before they rounded the corner. Luca's eyes found Sophia and immediately went wide at her pale face. "Sophia, what happened?" He reached her in 2 strides, strong hands bracing her arms. Wordlessly, Sophia opened her palm and showed him the gleaming razor. Luca inhaled sharply. The guard cursed under his breath and rushed to rouse his fallen comrade nearby. Adriano," Sophia stammered, voice shaking now that the moment had passed. "He was just here. He said war's coming." Luca's face hardened like steel. He gently closed her fingers over the razor and drew her into his embrace. "It's all right," he murmured, though fury vibrated beneath his calm. "I've got you. He won't touch you again." Juliana hurried up then, alarm on her face. Luca exchanged a look with his mother that spoke volumes. Giuliana's eyes flashed with anger, but she quickly schooled her features as a few patrons strolled by, oblivious. "We're leaving," Luca said under his breath. No one questioned him. Within minutes, the Vitale party exited the opera house, flanked by security. Sophia stayed glued to Luca's side, her hand clenched around that awful razor in her pocket. As their car pulled away into the Milan night, Sophia leaned against Luca, heart pounding in aftermath. He wrapped an arm around her, tension radiating from him. "This is it, isn't it?" she whispered. "The war's truly starting." "Yes," Luca said quietly. His gray eyes met hers, fierce and protective. "And whatever comes, and I swear to you, I won't let them harm you. We'll get through this." Sophia nestled closer, finding courage in his certainty. "Together," she affirmed. Luca pressed a kiss to her temple, lingering. "Together," he echoed. Outside the window, the city lights blurred past. In her other hand, Sophia still clutched the closed razor, a symbolic gauntlet thrown at their feet. She exhaled, her breath fogging the glass briefly. They had walked through one fire already, but a new blaze was being lit by their enemies. The true test of their bond lay ahead in that inferno of vendetta and violence. As Luca entwined his fingers with hers, Sophia steeled herself. They may have been thrust together by fate and fury, but their love had become real and unbreakable. Whatever trials the Mafia world had left for them, they would face every one side by side. They stand together in its eye, come what may.